Welcome back guys, Anime Scale here, back with a One Piece video, and today we will be ranking all the LOGIA fruit users from weakest to strongest. Just a quick disclaimer before starting, this list is based on my personal opinion, however I'll try and back up each one of my choices, keeping in mind that we've never seen an admiral going all out, and that they might result to be stronger than we think in the future chapters. Also keep in mind that we are not scaling just the fruits, but the users. That means that Aki proficiency and battle experience are also a factor here. And last thing, this video will contain manga spoilers, so click off the video if you don't read the manga. Now let's get started. Starting off at the bottom of our list, we have the infamous super rookie Wethead Caribou. Caribou ate the Numa Numa no Mi, rather called the Swamp fruit. As the name suggests, this fruit grants the user the ability to turn his body into swamp. Caribou can create bottomless swamps by turning his lower body into a swamp to trap the enemy. He can also store an almost infinite amount of objects, such as weapons, food, treasures, but also living beings, as we've seen with the mermaids in Fishman Island. And this is an ability that shouldn't be overlooked, considering that he could potentially carry an entire army without anyone noticing. Of course, like most LOGIA fruit users, Caribou cannot be injured by regular physical damage, since it gets absorbed into his swamp. The biggest weakness of this fruit was shown when Caribou couldn't return to his original form when he got trapped into a barrel by Frankie, so it has some limitations. Before the time skip, Caribou would have been a tricky opponent to deal with, but post-time skip, where a lot of people can damage LOGIA users with armament haki, Caribou is not all that strong. As a matter of fact, Pecoms defeated him with a single punch, and that's why he has to be below the Yonko officer tier. The guy relies way too much on his devil fruit powers, and never learned how to use haki or increased his durability. Coming in next on our list with her harpy appearance is Monet. Monet ate the Snow fruits that granted her control over snow. She could, like all LOGIA users, turn herself into the substance to avoid attacks. She could also control the density of the snow to form extremely solid snow barriers, and even weaken someone and make them lose consciousness by hugging or wrapping herself around them. Now it goes without saying that this devil fruit weakness is heat, and there are several devil fruits that can produce extreme heats, which would render her powers useless. Nothing is specified about Monet when it comes to haki, so it's hard for me to put her higher than this, especially seeing how easily Zoro defeated her. Next is Commander Smoker. After eating the smoke fruit, he's able to generate, manipulate, and become smoke itself. Needless to say that normal physical attacks will pass through his body. The fruit also allows Smoker to fly, giving him great combat advantages. He can also control the density of the smoke he generates, allowing him to grasp the opponent surrounded by the smoke. Smoker's fruit is impressive, as it has no apparent natural counters, other than it getting cancelled out by fire or pushed away by wind. After the time skip, we see Smoker using basic armament haki in his fight against Virgo. And although he ended up losing, we can say that he's hands down stronger than both Caribou and Monet, having more battle experience and being able to use armament haki. Moving on, I have Caesar Clown. The Gas fruit is one of the most dangerous fruits on this list. It turns the user's body into poisonous gas, and if you happen to be a mad evil scientist like Caesar, you can use the fruit's abilities in a wide variety of ways. Caesar not only can poison the opponent by releasing his gas, but can also create massive explosions by filling a pair of castanets with unstable gas and slamming them together. He can also remove oxygen from the surroundings, asphyxiating everyone within range. And remember that with this ability, Caesar knocked out Luffy, Smoker, Tasiji, Robin, and Frankie all in one shot. Against Luffy, he also used a bladeless sword that doubles as a lighter. By activating the lighter, Caesar created a blade of oxidized flame that was so hot that a mere slash set everything in its arc on fire. If this wasn't enough, let me touch on the strongest form of Caesar, where he absorbs the chemical weapon Shinokuni, being capable of petrifying any living being upon contact. Now, if you coat yourself with armament haki, you can counter the ability to a certain extent, but it still remains one of the most dangerous abilities seen in One Piece. Being this incredibly good at using his devil fruit, Caesar never trained haki, which is his main weakness. Right now, Caesar has become a gag character, and I don't expect him to become any stronger than this. Next up on the list is Crocodile. The sand fruit, rather than just normal elemental control, also allows the user to locate quicksand, set off devastating sandstorms, and absorb liquids. He can, of course, transform his body into sand, becoming invulnerable to regular physical attacks, but as most of you know, the biggest weakness of this fruit is that the sand turns solid when in contact with liquids, which include blood, temporarily nullifying Crocodile's intangibility. Now, it's clear that before the time skip, Crocodile couldn't use Aki, but that was only because Oda hadn't introduced it yet in the series. Right now, Crocodile is the leader of the cross-guild organization with Mihawk, and I bet he can at least use Perception and Armament Haki, seeing as minor weaker characters such as Bellamy and Peckhams had it. Above Crocodile, I put the former ruler of Skypiea, Enel, and I think most of you will agree with me when I say that Rumble fruit is one of the strongest in the series. After eating this devil fruit, Enel became lightning itself, becoming capable of generating, controlling, and transforming into electricity, and like any Logia user, Enel is intangible to any physical attack, not coated with Armament Haki. Enel can of course move at lightning speed. He can merge with any conductive material such as gold to stealthily travel through it. He has a wider range of moves for both close and long-range combat. We have El Thor, which is the attack he used more frequently, where he sends out a large cluster of electricity to gather above his target, and then make it crash down as a massive column via a downward swipe of his arm. Another basic attack is Vari, a technique whereby Enel discharges variable amounts of electricity from his body in order to shock nearby targets. One of his strongest attacks is called Raigo. Here, Enel practically makes a Genki Dama of electricity with the aid of his ship Maxim, and with all the gold being a really good conductor for electricity, so his powers augmented with Maxim, he can make this giant electrical death spirit bomb that could potentially wipe out an entire island. We also have his ultimate form, where he morphs his body into pure 200 million volt electricity, while growing in size to become a giant Raijin-esque lightning figure, being capable of unleashing immense bolts of electricity from his hands. Enel was also shown using Perception Haki called Mantra in the Skypiea arc, in conjunction with his ability to read electromagnetic waves from afar to make his sphere of perception span the entire country, granting him a radar-like awareness of everything occurring in it. Enel has a very good Perception Haki, and he's capable to see at least 1 or 2 seconds into the future, allowing him to anticipate the enemy's attacks. But now let's touch on Enel's weaknesses, because yes, he's very strong, but at the end of the day, he got defeated by pre-time skip Luffy. First obvious weakness is Armament Haki, which he doesn't even know about, and of course his natural counter, which his rubber, Luffy, was completely unfazed by Enel's attacks, and Enel was not as strong as Luffy in hand-to-hand combat, and that's basically how Enel lost. Enel is one of those characters that relies way too much on their Devil Fruit powers, but if he trains both Perception and Armament Haki, he would be a top-tier character. Next on the list is Portgas the Ace, who had what is probably the most famous and recognized Logia fruit in One Piece. The user of the Flame fruit becomes fire itself, so it goes without saying that attacks without Haki will pass through the user. Ace's signature move was the Fire Fist, where he charged up fire on his fist and released a great amount of fire. He also had other moves such as the Higan, where he turns his fingertips into fire and shoots bullets made of compressed flame. Hibashira, which is basically Ace shooting collective flames straight upward, destroying a target above him. Overall, Ace had a very good control over his fruit and was very creative with it. His strongest attack, called Dai Enkai Enten, literally means Great Flame Commandment, Flame Emperor, and consists in his giant fireball that once thrown at Blackbeard covered half the size of the island they were in. Now when it comes to Haki, nothing is mentioned in the manga besides Ace subconsciously knocking out the Blue Jam pirates with Conqueror's Haki. However, in Ace's novel, he had both Armament and Perception Haki, which he used to defeat a Vice Admiral, and although it's not canon, it makes sense, considering that he was the second commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, and that he travelled in the New World for a relative long time. His feats against Blackbeard and Aokiji put him at least at the very bottom of the first commander tier, besides being a Yonko second commander. Now, Flame Emperor Sabo. I don't want to repeat myself about the Flame fruit powers, but rather focus on how strong Sabo was before eating the fruit. Trained under the revolutionary Sabo became Dragon's first commander. In the Dressrosa tournament, he has shown a high-level Armament Haki, as well as a mastery of the Ryosoken fighting style, probably learnt by Dragon himself. This fighting style focuses on holding one's fingers in a claw fashion, crushing the adversaries with a powerful grip, and Sabo compares it to a dragon's claw. When he mixed this technique with armament haki and the powers of the flame fruit, Sabo easily defeated Burgess, one of Blackbeard's commanders. In the Dressrosa arc, we've also seen Sabo exchanging blows with an admiral. Here, Fujitora was holding back more than Sabo, but I think that he's on his way to become as strong as an admiral. The last Logia fruit introduced in the series is Green Bull's Mori Mori no Mi, or the Forest fruit. Green Bull can create, control, and transform his body into plant life. Notably, as plants are a solid element, Aramaki cannot turn intangible, though most attacks that are not Haki imbued are still harmless to him, as he will regenerate by spouting out to the ground and grow back into his normal self. Green Bull can generate large quantities of plants to unleash overwhelming large-scale attacks. He can turn his fingers into sharpened tree branches and impale dozens of enemies over a large area with ease. Additionally, his plants can rapidly absorb any liquid they touch. In this way, he defeated both King and Queen at the same time, although there is an argument that the two were still recovering after the raid and that they were probably chained when Aramaki arrived. Now you would think that an obvious weakness of a plant-based devil fruit is of course fire, and you'd be right, but Aramaki developed an ability called Fireproof Forest, where he basically makes his tree body less susceptible to fire-based attacks. Now, the fight between Green Bull and the Scabbards doesn't have any substantive outcome because as soon as Green Bull sensed Shanks' Conqueror's Haki, he ran away, so we don't get to see how really strong he is. As all admirals, he's a highly skilled Haki user. He can coat his branches with armament Haki, and he was able to sense the red hair pirates with perception Haki. Overall, Green Bull was a big disappointment for me, and I think that based on what we've seen in Wano, when Luffy, Sanji, Zoro, and Jinbei were there, watching the fight chilling, we can say this guy is one of the weakest, if not the weakest admiral. Fourth spot for Kizaru, the Pika Pika no Mi, or the Light fruit, is one of the most powerful and versatile devil fruits in One Piece. Kizaru can move, travel, and perform kicks at the speed of light. He can also shoot powerful laser beams. He can of course use Perception Haki, and during the Summit War, he was seen using an advanced form of Armament Haki alongside Akainu and Aokiji to negate a long-distance Quake Shockwave sent out by Whitebeard. Since he was introduced, he never went all out, so we don't know the full extent of his powers. However, Rayleigh looks somewhat tired during the later stages of the fight, while Kizaru seemed to be holding back. Considering his Broken Devil Fruit, the ability to use advanced armament and observation Haki, I have Kizaru at the highest spots of the Admiral level. Third spot for the coldest Admiral, Aokiji. The Ice fruit allows him to create, control, and transform his body into ice. Compared to most Logia users that can let physical attacks pass through their bodies, Kuzan is more easily hit since ice is a solid element. However, he still goes unharmed by enemy attacks that are not infused with Haki. Instead of dissipating out of harm's way, his body shatters apart when struck, only to reform effortlessly thereafter. In combat, he can create ice weapons such as swords and spears, but he can also make more elaborate constructs, like the giant pheasant, to send flying at the enemies. In a world where the main counter to the Devil Fruit's power is seawater, Aokiji has a huge advantage, being capable of casually freezing several square kilometers of ocean within seconds. I've put Aokiji very close to the Yonko level, considering that it took Akainu 10 days to ultimately defeat him. Number 2 spot for Akainu. According to the Vivre Card databook, the Magma fruit boasts the highest offensive power amongst all devil fruits. And I mean, this was already clear in the War of Mainford, as Sakasuki was one of the few combatants able to fight against Whitebeard at one-on-one. Akainu managed to punch a hole through Whitebeard and also blow off a chunk of his face, and it's quite obvious he deserves a Yonko level considering that after the time skip, he became the Navy Fleet Commander in place of Sengoku. We don't know how exactly strong Akainu's Haki is, but assuming that he'll be one of Luffy's final opponents, I bet it's at the highest levels. And talking about Luffy's final opponents, the first spot is secured by none other than Blackbeard himself. With the power of darkness, Blackbeard can absorb anything from bullets to cannonballs, lightning, light itself. But for that reason, he can't actually become darkness, and he can actually absorb pain way more than an average human. So why is it at the top of the list? Well, as a trade-off, the fruit gives Blackbeard the ability to nullify other Devil Fruit abilities by just touching the opponent. This is one of the most powerful abilities to have in One Piece, and as you guys know, Teach also has Whitebeard's Gura Gura no Mi, making him one of the most powerful characters in the show, and the one that will most likely be Luffy's very final opponents to defeat. So this was the ranking of the LOGIA fruit users. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below, and as always, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. This is Anime Scale signing out. Bye!